Hello everyone. Thank you for joining our event today. I'm Tashiro belonging to Hiroshima Prefectural Office. Before starting the event, we have some precautions, so please listen for a while. This online seminar is held by webinar style, so participants are not able to ask questions directly, but we want to know what participants want to know and answer the questions. So if you have some questions or impressions, please send message to the chat. じゃあ、トムさん、早速お願いします。
お願いします。ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
So yeah, thank you for joining us. So this is our third Hirobiro seminar in English. And yeah, again, I think there's a lot of people who have signed up. So that's amazing to see. And thank you for taking the time to join us today. Today we've got two really interesting guests. I think today's discussion is going to be an exciting one. So we've got JJ Walsh, Joy Walsh, and she's, yeah, that's her. And so she's very big in the kind of sustainable scene. You've probably seen her online in her Seek Sustainable Japan webcasts and podcasts. And she's been here for a very long time, so she knows all the ins and outs of living in Hiroshima. We've also got Jason Lawrence, who's there you go, and he saw the last webinar back in, I think you were probably in Singapore at the time, and since then he's made the move to Hiroshima, and he's living on Osaki Kamijima, which is actually a 15-minute ferry ride from where I am today. So today we're just going to go through quick introductions, and then I think there's going to be quite a lot of questions from everyone watching, and we'll just keep the discussion going. So please, yeah, if you can write your questions in the chat or preferably in the Q&A box, I'll try and pick them up and then direct them to Jason and Joy. All right, so first of all, I'm just going to start off by introducing myself. So bear with me. Okay. And so this is basically me. So I was born in Tokyo and then moved to the UK, and I returned to Tokyo in 2009, and then with my wife we moved to Osaki Shimojima, which is an island on the Tobishima Kaido, in 2015. And my wife was employed as a rural revitalization officer, and that way we could get a little house that came as part of the job for 3 years. And then since then we've renovated a house. We also run a small tea house on weekends where I'm actually talking to you from the tea house. And we have a small vegetable garden that we kind of grow our own vegetables. And my main job is photography, writing and translation. So I'm doing that from the island. So this is a kind of a quick overview of where we are. So I'm on Osaki Shimojima, which is this island here, on a town called Mitarai. So this is Hiroshima City, which is over here where Joy is now. And this is Osaki Kamijima, where Jason is. So this is kind of the layout. This is Miyajima to the left with the famous Itsukishima shrine. So yeah, Hiroshima's got quite a diverse geography, lots of islands, but also like really nice mountainous areas where I think Joy's going to talk about that later on. And this is the Tobishima Kaido, which is a set of islands connected by bridges. And then we're on the fourth island from the mainland. And the island itself looks like this. Mitala is like a historical port town. So it's all these buildings are listed kind of historical buildings, which means you can't actually change the outside, but you're free to renovate the inside. And so, yeah, this is kind of like the view of the Seto Inland Sea, which is surrounding all of Hiroshima. It's really cheap to buy and rent property in this part of the world. So this is the house that we ended up living in, and we bought and then renovated the inside. And so it's kind of, we kept the inside very kind of modern, and just, yeah, it doesn't look like that anymore. But and this is the shop, the tea cozy. So this was another kind of empty property, and then we just made a English tea house. So we sell scones and sell tea. And actually, this is like in the center is from this weekend where we had fresh bergamot, so we could make Earl Grey tea. So these are kind of things that you can do on these islands are famous for their citrus. So that's pretty much where I'm coming from. So if Jason, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, go for it. I'll get my share screen set up. Hello, everyone. Okay. Cool. That's the end. Okay, so here we go. As Tom mentioned, last summer, we made the move to this seaside location, and during the island tour, we gave ourselves the school summer break to make a decision on where to live. Both my wife and I are school teachers, or we're school teachers. This is how we spent most of our evenings. It was hard, and sometimes it was hard traveling through the heat of the midsummer days, but we made sure that the kids enjoyed their evenings, and yeah, this is how we spent our dinners, which is fantastic. And this is the journey so far. So one of the reasons why I'm in Japan is my wife is Japanese. We met in New Zealand. She was educated in New Zealand from the time of high school all the way through to finishing university. So by the time we graduated, we thought it was a good time to return home for her. And we spent 6 years in Tokyo. And then after that, we figured we got to see another part of the world, and offers came up from Singapore. So we spent the next 12 years in Singapore. And it was a wonderful place. That's where we raised our kids, and got to travel a lot from Singapore, being the fantastic hub that it is. But we just felt it was time to reconnect with nature. It could have been New Zealand, but right now everything's so expensive in New Zealand that coming here was a lot more attractive. And as Tom mentioned, it started here over a year ago. I was communicating with the good people at Hiroshima, and I do remember the second English Zoom session we had a year ago, and the three participants, or three panelists, Tom, Thomas, and Gervan, I met all of them last summer. I told them I was coming. I'm not sure if they believed me, but yeah, I'm here now. So this is where it all started. This is my view from work. I work at a small tertiary institution, the Setouchi Global Academy. It specializes in ecology and social entrepreneurship. With a 12 to 16 month program here, students can go straight into year 2 at the College of the Atlantic in the United States. So it's a wonderful program, small program, and low fees. And the way we plan to keep fees low is to offer entrepreneurship opportunities for students. You know, there are many orchards and homes nearby that we can take advantage of and renovate and see what opportunities exist. And of course, once COVID passes, then a lot more opportunities will be realized. I teach 2 classes a week. One is for the students of the school, a presentation class, considering most of their lectures and assessments are online, often with professors in the United States. And one class is for the community. I teach an adult Eikairo class, a conversation class, And not before long, my wife and kids will probably be helping out with the kids' English class as well. So we just do what we can. There's a demand there, so we just try to help out where we can in the community. I've long been a student of economics, so I'm very much interested in how we manage our finite resources. Through teaching in Singapore, we were able to create wealth that we probably could not have created if I stayed in New Zealand or taught in another country. So it just means that being here, that wealth can go a lot further. When you consider that you can pick fruit here on the island for, let's say, 1,000 yen an hour, an hour's work a day will cover your rent for a nice family home here. We live in a pretty humble abode, but it has 3 bedrooms, it's 2 floors, enough space in the backyard for a garden, and enough space in the front for our 2 cars and trampoline. And it's 30,000 yen a month. So life's all right, yeah. And what's also interesting is that there's no actual real estate agent or business on this island. So you really have to make a point of getting out and talking to people and finding what opportunities there are in property and work as well. But fortunately, as I'm a long distance runner, I've ran pretty much every road on this island, and I stop and talk to as many people as I can. And that's one way of how these opportunities present themselves. And the last one, my goals for the year, these are my 2 kids. I want to build my own home, possibly renovate, not your typical IKEA project, but I'm much more interested in perhaps, let's say, for example, a seaside warehouse renovation, something, a bit different. And I want, this is a long-term project, but I want to develop my own food forest. I'm very interested in permaculture, and continue to give back to the community that gives to me. We're very happy here, and we'll see what the future holds. As my kids grow up, maybe that means half a year in New Zealand, half a year in Japan. We're not sure, but for now, we're having a lot of fun. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jason. So Joy, do you want to?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. It's great to connect with all of you. I'm very active on Twitter, and before we started, I did a poll. Would you move from the city to rural Japan? And the top choice to have a nice house and garden is actually the reason I wanted to live where I'm living now, in a renovated old house as well. And even though we're just outside of Hiroshima City, we, with our mortgage, are paying 70,000 yen a month. So even within Hiroshima City, I think you can find some great old places to remodel and have a really nice lifestyle balance, but I really sometimes am so envious of where Tom and Jason are, because I grew up in Hawaii, and I often think back to my island days. And that's one of the best things about Hiroshima. I think we have the mountains, we have the rivers, and we have so many interesting islands as well to explore. Let me see if I can share this. I think you saw the profile for me as part of the information for this webinar. This is my YouTube channel. For the last 2 years, I've been really focused on telling stories of people around Japan who are doing great things, kind of connected to sustainability in terms of people, planet, profit. And so this has been keeping me busy for the last 2 years. 2020, I started it in April and just finished my 352nd interview. So it's kept me busy, and I'm going to give 2 examples of 2 stories of people who have moved outside of Hiroshima and set up in rural areas, which I hope will inspire you. So I originally grew up in Hawaii. I co-founded gethiroshima.com with my partner in 2000. We have a lot of information there. Tom's website now is expanding on what we started many years ago. It's wonderful to see people building on that foundation of information we started. When we started the website and information and map and magazine, it was really because we were starting to uncover so much more about Hiroshima that we noticed people who were visiting or even living here didn't realize. So we were happy to start sharing and making connections with local people, businesses, events, and getting people to experience more and engage more with what was happening in Hiroshima. So as I said, 2019, I left university. I was teaching at a business and tourism courses and gender courses at a university for 21 years. And I left in 2019 and then started doing my consulting and training, but difficult to do in-person stuff when coronavirus hit. So I went online with this talk show podcast journey, which has taken me around Japan and so many amazing stories along the way. So you can find some of these great stories, a lot in Hiroshima, but a lot in other parts of Japan. So if you don't mind, I would love to share 2 stories with you, which are in Hiroshima, which are really inspiring to me, and I think give you an idea of other possibilities around the area. The first is Oheso Cafe, and this is in the area called Sera. Sera is really famous for its agriculture. So there's a lot of fruit. People visit the area just to do fruit picking. It's not so far from the airport. It's a really beautiful area. And this couple, Frank and Kyoko, they met in Europe. They were both woofers working on an organic farm, and they decided to come back to Japan. She's from Japan, and they found some organic farm area that they could grow vegetables. And the farmer said, oh, if you want to, you can just use that shack over there. And they ended up using that shack and remodeling it and making it into a cafe, which has now become a really popular cafe. His breads, he started making European style breads. And people at first said, it's going to be too hard, not suitable to the Japanese taste. But it has become so popular with Japanese people and foreign visitors and residents alike. People drive all the way out there to the cafe. They are famous for this amazing sourdough bread pizza. Am I making you hungry? And his breads are so popular, he started a bakery. He took over an old convenience store and remodeled it, made it into a bakery for selling his goods. Next door was an abandoned gas station. He took over that. Now that's a workshop and where he does classes. So really great success story out there in Sera. Another example, Tom, is it okay? One more example, okay? Another example is in the Akitakura area. It's about 90 minutes drive outside of Hiroshima city center, and very famous for the beautiful and thrilling performance of Kagura. You can see the Kagura costume here with an international resident from Hiroshima who was experiencing behind the scenes Kagura experience in Akitakura. So the area has something called Kagura Village, where you can see the performers practicing. All the performers are volunteers from the area. They're training a lot of kids. So in terms of sustainability, it's great to see, because you know that the future of Kagura is quite strong, because the kids are also training and learning all of the craft as well. If you visit the village, you can get the practice sessions. So you can see the entertainers outside of their costume as they're practicing. And all the Kagura practice also is done with live music. So even though it's practice, you have such a nice experience being able to listen to the live music and being able to see them practice their performances. Now their Kagura village, as I mentioned, is a very retro style, old looking village. They have an event space there. They have a museum. They also have an onsen and eateries. So that in itself already has a lot of tourism appeal for domestic travelers as well as international travelers. To families that have gone out to this area to settle are really interesting stories. Shiri no Hatake is run by a young family. Originally, they were running a restaurant in Hiroshima City, and they wanted to move out to the countryside to have a better work-life balance. They had a young kids, so they wanted to have more time as a family. They remodeled this old, beautiful house and made it really comfortable, but kept that traditional Japanese aesthetic. In the talk show, I talked to Alex Kerr, and this is something that he does in a lot of his remodel projects around Japan, try to bring the traditional Japanese beautiful aesthetic that we love into the modern age and make it comfortable. And so like they have very traditional features, but it's got insulation. It has heating. It's a very beautiful modern kitchen inside. And because they're both chefs as well, you are so pampered by all this amazing food at their beautiful guest house. Ini Abi Farm is another great example. They took over a gigantic old traditional Japanese house, and they remodeled it, some for them to live in, but some to have as guest rooms. So they can get some income by renting out the guest rooms and of course appeal to tourists as well. They are also doing organic farming, and they are doing workshops for organic farming. So they have school kids come and they teach the kids, and they teach anybody who comes about organic farming and SDGs, and really helping develop the community as well as appealing for tourism. So yeah, those are two great examples. I can go on all day, but I'm sure people have lots of questions and you want to talk more about Jason and Tom's experience as well.
Okay, thanks, Joy. That's great. So I think, yeah, so from now, I think if we go into a kind of discussion phase, yeah, if people want to just ask questions, then you can just put them, probably it's better off in the Q&A box rather than the chat, just so we can keep ahead of it. But first of all, I think I just want to kickstart things by just asking Jason about his move, just because it's so recent. So when you decided to come over from Singapore, what was the kind of the process of, what were the steps that you took to?
Oh, sure. So with my in-laws in Fukuyama, we decided that we wanted to stay in the Hiroshima area of the Seto Naikai. So they put us in touch with coordinators on each island. We had Zoom sessions prior to coming, and once we arrived, we flew into Fukuoka and drove up to Fukuyama. Once we completed our quarantine, we were on the road, hit the road running, and spent about, I'd say about a month touring the islands, staying a night here and there. But the real game changer for us was on Osaki Kamijima. You have the trial house system, where you could spend, well, I mean, you could spend a lot of money on a hotel, but with the trial house, it's set up for people to stay a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it's basically 12,000 yen a week. So that made it easier to stay for longer on an island that we were interested in. And each day we spent on the island, we just continued to meet more and more people, to the point where we just felt obliged to come back and move. Yeah, we had an idea it would be Osaka Kamijima, but we had to see other islands first to make sure we were doing the right thing. We actually visited Osaka Kamijima before COVID happened. As teachers, we were interested in the schools and education options here. It has started to develop a reputation as an educational island. But maybe that's due to the fact that a lot of schools are closing down on other islands, and we still have a lot of schools. But there are interesting, like I say, tertiary options, particularly where I work part-time, which is exciting once, you know, the world is safe again. The process, yeah, COVID didn't really change our plans. Like I say, we already intended in maybe 2018 to pack up life in Singapore around this time. For me, it was just getting a visa during lockdown and stuff. That was the only hard thing, and the price of shipping was insane. So we only came with, you know, our bags and a few books and clothes. Because our colleagues, when they would leave Singapore, they would often send a container back home with furniture and whatever, but that was not an option for us. So we packed very light. And like I say, moving here was interesting because like there's no real estate industry here. So you really do have to get out and talk to people. So that was, I took it on as a challenge. I like to be quite quiet, but for the sake of my family and my kids, I had to get out and talk to people. So yeah, it went very smooth. Like I say, if you just show that you are looking to be a great addition to the island, then people treat you very nicely. And you know, we've experienced nothing but kindness since arriving. So far, so good. It's been 6 months. When I tell people I want to build my own home, grow my own food, they say very, very casually, oh, you know, give it about a year. More than a few people have told me that. And so it's been 6 months so far. There are places I could buy tomorrow in terms of there is stuff available. But because I do run and I've explored every nook and cranny here, I've got a few spots that I'm keen on that I don't want to pass on yet. It's just finding. So for example, I find a nice spot, it's clearly abandoned, but who owns it? How do I contact them? Are they interested in selling? That's a process that could take a while. But like I say, if your rent is 1,000 yen a day, then there is the pressure is off a bit. You don't need to rush into full-time work if you come with some savings. So my friends in Singapore and New Zealand have been nagging at me to set up an online presence. I send them videos once a week, but yeah, watch this space. I'll probably have a website and YouTube channel up sometime soon. Yeah.
Can I just comment on that point? Because this is something that often comes up when people move from the cities to the rural areas that I've talked to in the series. Some people say you really should go and do a trial stay to make sure you get a good vibe before you invest in buying your place. Did you guys do that? Because some other people I say, do you go and check it out before you buy? And then they say, oh, I'm pretty sure I'm going to love wherever. So it just kind of depends on the person.
Yeah.
How about in you guys' cases?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, it's a good point. There was pressure on in the sense that we started our reconnaissance tour mid-July and we needed an address by the end of August for our kids to get into school. So whether we bought or not, we had to secure a rental address for the time being. That was hard because our first approach was to go through the island's Akia Bank. Yeah, you quickly learn you're probably often better off just finding the part, so in my case, the part of the island that I'm interested in and talking to the people in the area. Because for some areas, some islands, the Akia banks are not updated frequently. But the rental properties we saw on the Akia bank were no better than some of the properties for sale. So it just didn't make sense to me renting something that I'd probably have to spend a lot more on getting up to living standards. But yeah, there's, like I say, once you arrive and you get a feel for the area, there's a lot more than what people see on these Akia banks and whatnot. So if you don't see what you like online, rest assured there's plenty around. Yeah.
I often go to Onomichi. I am in love with Onomichi, and it has such a great vibe. And I know so many people who have had great success buying old places in Onomichi and getting them remodeled. But this is one question I asked you guys before. How easy is it to find people to help you renovate if you want something done? Because that is a big hurdle for the Onomichi area. You have a lot of these great old houses that are basically for nothing, but it's no road access, right? Like you have to hire people to walk upstairs with all their building materials. So unless you're going to do it yourself, and I know a lot of people are very handy. I did some plastering at my place, but I hired people to do the rest. How handy are you guys? And how much did you hire people in to get work done?
You should go first, Tom.
Okay. Well, I think living here makes you become handier than you were and kind of like try new things as well. I mean, I was kind of surprised because on the island where I'm living, you've actually got quite a few really highly skilled carpenters and also kind of renovation companies based on these islands, and then they would work, they have their kind of territories that they work in, but they're pretty much handling all the renovations in this area, and they're doing really well with it. So I mean, you're not really short of professionals, skilled professionals
and especially Tom, like your exposed beams, we did that as well, but we had to shop around for remodelers that would do that. The first remodel companies we asked, they wanted to cover everything up, and we're like, no. So getting remodelers who will work with you on like keeping that old aesthetic, you've been really lucky finding that, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, so we did our house with the local carpenter called Izuman-san, and so there's a father, and then the younger son, who's Yuji-san. He actually lives in Hiroshima City and works here every day, like drives here every day. But yeah, I mean, so for the exposed beams, like this is getting really specific, but you have to kind of cut because the beams aren't straight, they're basically just like logs that they've just stuck onto the roof. They have to cut out each of the kind of panels, the wall panels, to fit, and
like fit it in, right?
Yeah. And like most carpenters wouldn't, he said, like most carpenters wouldn't do that. Like they would just cover up half of the beams just because it's quicker and easier. But I think because you're part of the community, you're kind of like pretty much friends with the local guys who are doing the work. They kind of make that extra effort, which is
because I think that's something a lot of people worry about, right? Like, am I gonna be able to go to a doctor if I get sick or somebody in my family gets sick? So is there healthcare nearby? Is there schools? Now I know you guys have both like probably revived the local school, and I hear this so much from the Oheso family, from the people in Akitakura, like moving out there with kids. You have become the school. Like it's like reviving suddenly. It's wonderful. So
Yeah.
both of you guys have, was that a consideration, like healthcare, education, access for you guys? Not so much access, right?
Not so much access. I like the fact that we don't have a bridge. It's a 25-minute ferry to Takehara. We can go to a few different other ports as well. Like I mentioned before, we have we have 2 supermarkets, which is good for competition. We have a DIY store, a drugstore, a few eateries, all schools ranging from kindergarten to high school, as well as tertiary institutions. I have everything I need. I love the fact that I live in this miniature version of a well-functioning world, and I can disconnect from any of the issues that are happening, you know, off somewhere else, you know. It's I just love it.
Do you have your own energy? Like you were saying self-sustaining
Yeah.
for food,
Yeah.
but is energy outsourced, or is there energy on the island?
Oh no, this yeah. So Chugoku Denroku is one of the major employers here. We actually live in a house that was built by Chuden probably 30, 40 years ago. They ran this neighborhood where a lot of the employees lived back then, and you just get the idea. They built these houses on purpose without insulation, so we would be running aircon and all year round. So
Well, that doesn't sound very sustainable. If you wanted to get solar, would it be possible to get your own renewables?
Yeah,
You
for
can.
sure. There's solar everywhere here. I want to go solar, and I want to do as much as the island will let me in terms of building. If they let me do everything, I'll do everything. My carpentry experience goes as far as hacking IKEA products on my balcony in Tokyo and Singapore. However, I've been a long-time student, and I feel like I've graduated from the University of YouTube in terms of carpentry, so I'm ready to go. So because I am not working full-time at the moment, I make a point of, in my free time, building as much furniture as I can now. I'm sitting at the dining table I built. The blind behind me I made to try and keep the room a bit warmer. And I've been helping friends on their renovation projects, as well as a few demolition jobs. I pretty much know all the carpenters on the island now, and they know me. And I just told them, watch out, I want to build, so if you can, help me out.
That's awesome. I want to live, I mean, to have a sustainable life, you got to live near people who can help you repair stuff. You have to have healthcare. You have to have education. It sounds like you guys have good locations. Of course, in Hiroshima City, we do as well. Don't worry if anybody's worried about that. But that's one of the things I haven't been able to do, which I wanted to do more, is grow my own food. We just don't have a garden that gets enough sun. But I have been able to get monthly great organic veg from Miyajima Organic Farmer and Thomas on Mukaishima, who was one of your previous guests. So I'm perfectly fine supporting local farmers, you know, as long as it supports us, supports them, it's all good. But you guys are actually growing your own, right?
Yeah, as much as we moved into this rental accommodation in October, so the garden is small, but it's going. Like, the island is fertile. You know, it's famous for citrus, as is the whole area. But you know, the image that people give you, it sounds like this island used to glow back in the day when it was just citrus everywhere. It's still very vibrant, very fertile. And there's a lot up for grabs. Like I say, you just got to find out who owns it and whether they want to rent it, whether they want to sell it. A lot of people will rent you their farms or their properties simply for the price of the annual tax, which makes it, again, very economical. And in many cases, that's better. Van, for example, who was on the panel last year, he built his house on land that he rents. Rents for a grand sum of about 12,000 yen a year. He's doing very well.
There's farmers in Nagano. They actually did a Mexican workshop for us from beans that he grew himself. It was so cool. But they wanted to buy the farmland as part of their property. And so they had to become official farmers.
Yes.
I don't know if that's possible in Hiroshima, but that was really cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I was to buy farmland, I would probably have to become, let's say, a student of the owner. And he would, I think it was the same with Thomas from Pitchfork. He rented his farmland for the first 4 years or something like that from the owner. And then after 4 years, he could officially purchase that land. I'm probably in a similar situation here, but yeah, it's all looking very, very positive.
Awesome. We've got some good questions, Tom. Should we dive in?
Yes, I think we should probably get through some of these, otherwise we might run out of time. So the first one comes from Carly S, who says, how does one find work in a rural area or get started with freelance work or running a cafe guest house? So I'm just thinking, maybe Joy, with your experience of talking to lots of different people running different enterprises, what do you think about that?
Sure. I've talked to people who have moved from Tokyo to areas 90 minutes or 2 hours away by car or by public transport. And the way that they kind of leveraged their financial security was to keep their Tokyo job while they were transitioning. And so at first they would be working 9 to 5, only going on the weekends, trying to get something set up. And then eventually full-time living in the rural area and commuting back and forth to Tokyo. And I think now during coronavirus, that's become a lot easier. A lot of the people who were doing that, they said, but now during Corona, I can just telework and call in from my home. And so I think for your areas as well, as long as you have good Wi-Fi, you can pretty much work from anywhere. So that's kind of a nice way to have more financial security, I think, while you're transitioning. And then a few people I talked to, they started selling their organic produce online. They also ran a guest house. So the guest house and farming combo. So you have food, you're growing mostly for your family. If you have extra, you trade it or sell it. That's a little bit of income. But also you're working online. That's a little bit of income. You have 1 or 2 rooms in your house or in an adjacent house, which is a guest room. So that's a bit of income, but also a way to connect to visitors and share what you're doing. Does that answer?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And so, and Jason, you're at the moment, you're doing lots of different kind of jobs.
Yeah, so you know, I've definitely moved from a white collar specialist into a blue collar generalist. I know that I want to build my own home, and I know that I want to farm my own food. If I'm successful at building, then maybe I follow that route a bit further. If the farming takes off, then I'll follow that commercially. But I'm just very lucky to be in a position where we can take our time doing so, you know, keep afloat with part-time work and just see where it goes. Like I say, education's on the back burner, but you know, there's a part of me and for my wife as well, we'll always be teachers and offering what we can to the people on the island. My kids, so my daughter is grade 3. She has a weekly lesson with a foreign ALT, the JET teacher comes in. And I just wish that they would let her be the assistant teacher. Because, yeah, both my kids are bilingual, which is fantastic for them. In terms of proficiency, I'm probably, you know, the least. But, you know, we're having a great time. So yeah, I do a lot of, so to get back to your question, I do a lot of things, but that's just coming back to meeting people because they see this foreigner running around these farm roads. I love getting up in the mountains. And for a lot of these farmers, you know, they don't see anybody during their workday. So for somebody to come up and say, hello, what's in season? What are you doing? I like that spot just up the hill. They get a kick out of it. And I just say, look, you know, I've got some time on my hands. Can I help you out? And in return, they help you out too. It's wonderful.
That's brilliant. And I guess like the other point is that because the cost of living is so low that you're not under that financial pressure.
Correct. I mean, if we had just one supermarket on the island, there might be a bit of pressure. but the two supermarkets we have are fantastic. I mean, yeah, just as reasonable as anything you find on the mainland. We have the Wants drugstore. That's a big chain here in Hiroshima. And Nintendo DIY store is huge. I'm in there almost every day. Yeah, I got no qualms at all. Amazon gets here the next day. It's, yeah, no issues at all.
So can I ask you guys a question? Which I'm trying to, Kathy's question is, how has your life become more sustainable in Hiroshima compared to previous location? I am always looking for ways to live more sustainably. And this is like my passion in life. So one of the things that I found from Kamikatsu, the zero waste town, is composting.
Yes.
If you can compost, and Kamikatsu is the only place in Japan that has mandatory composting, and they only have 1,500 people, but it reduced by 1/3 all of the garbage for the whole area. San Francisco, population 1 million, they did the same, and it reduced by 30%. My house reduced by 30%. So immediately, if you start composting, you're going to reduce your trash by 1/3 and build up your garden or your nearby community gardens, right? So do you guys compost? That's a great way to be sustainable.
That was the first thing that came to mind for me. It was risky composting on my balcony in Singapore. I had this tiny pot, but now I have these huge bins outside where we compost everything we can. I've made raised beds from scrap wood that I picked up from the DIY store. And it's just wonderful to move from a balcony garden to an actual, raised bed, or a couple of raised beds now. And hopefully not before too long, we'll have a bigger patch of land that we can experiment with. But yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind for me, composting. And what else?
Does everybody in your area compost? You would think on an island it makes so much sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of burning going on, which is surprising. But another thing that I'd like to mention is, even though I'm in a very residential area for the island, the two plots opposite me are actually gardens. So these old folks that come and garden most weekday mornings, they're already always giving us their spare produce, and we offer them coffee and tea, but they're just happy to help out. So there's a lot of trade going on. When somebody picks up all the fish, you'll find a lot of fish too. But yeah, there's just a huge surplus of wonderful fresh produce here. And like I say, the sea's right there too, so fishing is abundant.
Yeah, brilliant.
So I would say growing your own food, which you guys are doing, and I'm supporting local farmers, composting. Is there any good recycling or reuse systems around you guys? Because that's a huge way to reduce waste and be sustainable. That's a challenge in the cities. It's really hard. A lot of the supermarkets will take back the paper juice cartons or milk cartons if you wash them. A lot of the food trays now you can wash and take back. Is that the same kind of system you guys have there?
Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it's, I mean, I think it probably used to be, and then it kind of changed. But one thing I would say was that the farmers are really good at like reusing like materials and things. So if you go to the farms, they've made these kind of really interesting like barns and everything out of pallets and things. So I think there's a lot happening maybe in the agricultural sector, but yeah, I'm not sure in general.
Yeah.
Are most people farming organically? Because that seems to be a kind of difficult point for a lot of people trying to grow organically, but there's not a lot of support for organic yet in Japan, it seems, from JA or some of the buyers, right?
Right. Yeah, no, you're right there, JJ. I rocked up to our local JA probably a couple of weeks ago just to inquire about land, and they asked me, oh, by chance, are you interested in organic? And I said, yeah, if possible, I'd like to farm organic. And at the moment, that's still considered troublesome for a lot of farmers in the area.
I
But
hope that will
saying that,
change.
yeah, because there is so much space, all I need is a big enough plot of land or no neighbors on either side, and I won't be troublesome to anyone. So yeah, it's not impossible. And sorry, there are organic farmers here, but the majority are not organic at the moment.
I hear that from all over Japan. And I've met a lot of farmers. We need farmers of all kinds. So farmers of any kind, please. But I often hear from traditional farmers who are growing organic only for their own families, only for their own consumption. It's difficult to sell it to the buyers. So hopefully those kinds of changes are happening across Japan.
So.
Yeah.
Like
we took some of our citrus produce up to Shobara in December, a place where they don't grow mikan. We took up a few hundred kilos, and within the morning at their organic marché morning farmers market, they were all gone. So there's a demand. It was a wonderful market. We went there and everyone hosting their own little stall. You saw the health and happiness just vibe out of them. It was wonderful. So there is a market. It's not the dominant player here.
Yeah, but there seems to be a grassroots movement coming from a lot of Japanese natural organic farmers all over the country, as well as foreign natural organic farmers. Thomas goes an extra step, being no-till, but that goes to Fukuoka Sensei, who's so famous with his One Straw Revolution book around the world. So really, there's a lot of positive momentum, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So it looks like we've probably only got enough time for one more question, but it looks like JT, Milo, and Anonymous have got kind of like a similar question based around community and about how you interact with the local community and how they feel about you. I guess being like coming from abroad and things.
Can I answer real fast? So we moved to this neighborhood, even though it's Hiroshima City. We chose this neighborhood because it has its own festival. It has its own character. And people close down the main street and they have a festival once a year. The local school, there's other international families. So we knew our kids wouldn't be the only ones, so there were a lot of good reasons. It was convenient, it had good access. We loved the house, but I think one of the aspects definitely was community and that feeling that we could be part of the community, we would be accepted. So that was really important to us.
And do you get the feeling, like even in Hiroshima City, like in the center of the city, that there is still a feeling of community there that maybe you wouldn't get in like the huge metropolises like Tokyo?
I think so, definitely. I mean, there's certain areas where, they have, I think, look for somewhere where they have their own local festival. That's always like a giveaway that this is going to be a community that's still thriving, right? So like we pass around the information boards, in our neighborhood. When we moved in, we were the only ones with little kids, and we were like, oh no, but everybody's so old. Are they going to be okay with our kids being so loud? And they actually said, it's so nice to hear the children's voices, So we were like, yes, we chose right, But definitely pockets of great communities all over the city, I would say.
Yeah, same for me. The fact when we moved, we increased the population by 4. Most of the people here were psyched. Like, thank you. And now that we bought our kids a trampoline for Christmas, that's just been a meeting point for a lot of the kids in our neighborhood. So of course, they often come over with their parents. We start talking, and it's just a wonderful vibe. It's been a great move, no regrets. My only concern was if our kids were longing for the pampered life that many kids lead in Singapore, but they haven't looked back yet. They're loving life here too.
And I guess, I mean, like where in these kind of like island communities as well, like it's just natural that you end up taking part in all the kind of local community activities and things. I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, it sounds a bit negative if you say there's no getting away from it, but it's kind of like a fun part of the life that you probably wouldn't experience.
And everyone knows your business here, so you have to be a good person. You can't do bad stuff, otherwise news gets out. Yeah.
But you know, you should say, and this is something I've learned over 30 years in Japan, people are very forgiving. Like if you mess up, they forget about it pretty easily. You know, like it'll be uncomfortable for a little while, tense, and then they'll get over it. Is everybody gets over it really easily. And I love that about Japanese community. I'm so grateful for them forgiving me for mistakes.
And also it's kind of like nice. I mean, I don't know, I kind of equate it to being at school, that you've got like really good friends. You got most of the people are just like, you know, you're just friendly with. But you know that it's really nice that whenever there's like a little kind of crisis or a little someone's in need of help or something, like everyone just kind of like backs you up, and yeah, which is really, you know, it's kind of encouraging when you're
you definitely find your supporters in the neighborhood, right? Like there'll be some people who are always kind of skeptical, or you know, but there'll be some people who always have your back, as long as you're, you know, authentic and you're legitimate in trying to be a part of the community, right?
Correct.
So I think maybe like Jason, you probably found maybe that there's like these kind of like key people, like kind of like the community leaders that
like I said, I'm so grateful that I've ran my whole life and I still have the energy to run around, because it's through running I've met, I don't know, most of the people here. I know who does what. If I need this, I know who to see, and now they know me too, and what I can do to help them. So there are a lot of people very optimistic about the island or the Seto Naikai area itself opening back up and booming once travel's allowed. It's a wonderful space, and the fact that I can get from my island and be at Hiroshima International Airport within an hour, really, 25-minute ferry to Takehara, then a 35-minute drive to the airport. You know, it's not convenient as many people would think. And like I say, I like the fact that I have to get on a ferry. That ferry ride is so enjoyable. It's such a peaceful inland sea that you know, it beats taking a bus or a train for sure.
Okay, I think we're almost coming to the end of it's gone so quickly, like
So people are asking for our contacts. Should we just put our links if we have them in the chat, or?
Yeah, I think, do you want to do that now while we're still?
Sure.
Yeah, and also I think this is going to be uploaded to YouTube later.
Yep, that's fine. Hirobiro is asking. Yep, fine with me.
And yeah, I think if we haven't answered your questions, or if you have extra questions after you've seen this, you can actually contact Hirobiro, and then they'll send us emails and things, and we can answer it that way. Also, yeah. So I think if you want to connect, for me, it might be best. I run this website called the Setochi Cookbook. That's the Instagram. So that's a quick way. But also, like, if you want to talk about moving to this part of the world, you can contact me on this one, Tobishima Life.
Sorry, almost done. Trying to give people the link to the YouTube. You can find me if you search Seek Sustainable Japan or Inbound Ambassador is the name of my company. There you go. It's in the chat.
Mm.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I've just realized that. This is the Tobishima Life.
Yeah, you have a lot.
Yeah, too many.
but it's all in one place. If people go to one of your websites, don't you have all of them?
Oh, yeah. So you can go to.
Jason, nothing for you? We just have to shout over the water.
Yeah, or just Google Jason Lawrence running. You'll probably find me. Find me on Facebook.
I love that. I love that story about you running around everywhere to meet, to connect.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big I did triathlon for years, but I'm a big walker now. And I love exploring all the back streets of every town that I visit, every town that I live in. So running is just a great way to get to know an area, right?
That's right. That's right. What was nice was for our kids, well, for my daughter's school cross-country race, they actually asked me to come in and be the pacemaker for their marathon. And that was a wonderful experience because that was my daughter's first race. In Singapore, they didn't have that kind of whole school cross-country. So it was good to be there in the race with her. But let's say on Facebook, you can find me at Jace Has Pace. That's spelled with a pair of aces. Or LinkedIn, Run Jace Run. Yeah, I'm not hard to find. If you do find me, please say hello. And then we can connect. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So I think we're going to have to close things up now. Actually, there was a last question about my husband is an introvert and looks for somewhere isolated. Is being part of a community mandatory to live in a rural area? I think there's, like
there's lots of isolated places too. Yeah, no problem.
And I think there's lots of introverted people as well. So
in fact, you can find some really beautiful places that are really far away from everybody. If that's what you're looking for, there's definitely a lot to choose from, I would say.
Fantastic. Okay. So so thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to you, Joy and Jason, for this amazing conversation. So yeah, I've got a few kind of announcements from the prefecture that I have to announce. Is that going to be shared by the prefecture? Let me just, or me. Oh, okay, maybe me. Oops.
あ、そうさんしました。
あ、しました。あ、ごめんなさい。じゃあ、ちょっとストップしちゃう。Okay, so this is the Crushie Support Center in the Uractual building. And this is the kind of Tokyo hub for the Hiroshima prefecture. And so if you want to ask them anything about moving to Hiroshima or the experiences that you could have here, just give them a call or turn up. I think you have to actually book a session now because of the COVID restrictions.
So the file is broken, so it's fine.
Shall I share my?
Sorry.
Okay. All right, let me share my view. Okay, so yeah, so you can ask anything to Hirobira and they'll try and answer your questions, and also they can connect you with people like us who are already living here. And this is a kind of remote Abby-chan AI consultant, so you can start by asking her questions too. And this is the QR code if you want to click that now. And at the end of this session, you'll probably have a questionnaire that's going to pop up on your screen. And so if you can take a few minutes to answer that questionnaire, that'll be great. And this is the next webinar event, although this is going to be in Japanese. So if you're interested in joining this, you can sign up for the webinar on the Hiro Bureau website. Great. Okay, so thank you again, and hopefully we can have another session in the near future, and maybe even another session with this team, and so we can talk more about it, because I think there was a lot more that we could have discussed. So that's great. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Have a good night.